Hello and welcome to this edition of Healthy Habits. I'm your host, Amy Davis. Today's topic is gluten sensitivity, fact or fiction. Our guest today is a registered dietitian and expert on the subject, Jeannie Peters. Hello and welcome. Thanks so much for being here.
Thanks, Amy. It's always good to be here.
As usual. Can you start with telling us what gluten is and where can we find it?
Yeah, good question. Gluten is a protein that's naturally found in wheat, barley, and rye, and it's what gives the typical chewy texture to pizza or bread. And it's that texture that is also what creates many of the problems that we're experiencing with gluten.
So gluten, the protein itself, is actually what is harming, what's making some people sick.
Exactly. The protein is not easy for us to break down. Gluten is a lot stronger than it was, let's say, 30 years ago. Through genetic modification and through just hybridization, we're making gluten much stronger. And
so it's changed.
It's changed.
It's not what we're really made to break down.
Exactly.
And how is gluten connected to some of the symptoms like autoimmune disease, migraine headaches, bloating, gas? How does that work?
Well, a good way of looking at it is that if I took this bread and I literally just added like a little bit of water to it, it would start to gum up. I did this earlier. I mean, it gums up and it becomes glue-like.
Yes.
So gluten is the Latin word that comes from glue. So that's what happens, and that glue gets into our digestive tract and it actually makes it so sticky that many of the important nutrients can't get into the bloodstream and deliver to the body to where it's needed. It also prevents a lot of the some of the brain chemicals that are actually created in the gut, like serotonin and GABA. We aren't able to produce that as much. And in fact, even 90% of the immune system lives in our gut, and that's being impacted by this kind of glue-like texture that's literally sticking up and gumming the digestive tract.
So that's causing a lot of these issues.
Exactly.
I know you mentioned leaky gut too, right? So sometimes you're saying some of the foods will leak through.
Yeah, good point. And so if gluten actually damages the lining of the gut, and what happens is that sometimes there are holes that are being created. So some of these undigested proteins are actually going into the bloodstream, and the immune system then attacks it. Where it attacks it has an impact. So for example, if it's attacking it in the joints, a lot of people will notice that they have joint pain. It might attack it in the thyroid, so people will have hypothyroid issues. Wherever that damage is taking place, people are going to have symptoms.
So that is the gluten autoimmune connection right there.
Right.
Wow, and what are some of the hidden glutens? You know, I know that it's in everything, right? It's very hard to avoid.
Well, right now, wheat is one of the biggest commodity. Soy and wheat are the biggest commodity.
Corn would probably be next, right?
Right. So wheat is found in everything.
Yes, but even candies.
Oh yeah, it's amazing, and many people aren't aware. So thankfully, I mean, there are many alternatives that are out there. So for example, like pasta, you know, you can find a gluten-free pasta, or, I mean, if you're somebody that's going paleo, which more and more people are, I mean, you can just take a zucchini and you can just create your own pasta here. So
yeah, so it's like the noodles.
Yeah, so you can make your own noodles, and you know, this is kind of fun if you're just looking again to examine common places where you might be getting gluten.
I'm sure if you cook that up, it would taste really good.
Oh yeah.
Saute it with some things.
Get your kids involved with this one because it's fun to do. So the spiralizer is great.
Now, what is the difference? You know, a lot of people say that gluten intolerance is fake. It's not real. I mean, where are they getting that?
It's a good point because so many people have symptoms, and the way that physicians are being trained, they're not necessarily trained to look for gluten sensitivity like they do in Europe. In Europe, they often will test children as early as 18 months to determine if they might even have the genetics for gluten sensitivity or celiac disease.
Wow.
In this country, we don't do that. So many people are having things like joint pain or hypothyroidism, or they're having constant migraines, and they don't necessarily see the connection between what they may be eating and the symptoms that they're having. Celiac disease is something that physicians can do a blood test for, but there are many people who are having gut issues and damage to the gut who don't necessarily show up as having a positive test for celiac disease. So this can be smoldering for years and years and years, Amy, before somebody actually is symptomatic. So a lot is missed. Thankfully, there are a number of tests out where we can do better.
Yeah, I was just going to ask that. What kind of testing can be done, or what can we do if we suspect we might be allergic? Maybe not celiac, but something's going on. We know it's not the dairy. We've taken that out of our diet. We know it's not the soy. We don't eat that. So, I mean,
there's a couple of ways that you can go. The least expensive could be that you could do something like an allergy test where you could actually be testing your blood. It's not 100% reliable, but it's cheap. So something like this is like $139. It's great for helping people to see if they might be sensitive to gluten and wheat and rye and barley, and it would give them an overall. It's not going to be 100% reliable. The issue is that much of the damage is happening inside the gut. It's not happening in the bloodstream. So a good example of a stool test is put out by Enterolab. Enterolab. They can go online, consumers can order this directly, and it would give them 100% reliability. And so consumers have options.
All right.
But the best way that we use in our practice is just to have people pull it out of their diet. I teach people where the common sources of gluten are, and then I have them find some alternatives and then just track how they're feeling.
Like in a food journal. Right?
Exactly.
Basic food journal.
Right. Just write down everything that they eat.
Yep.
And then I teach them a little bit about where they might find the hidden source of gluten. And what's amazing, Amy, is that many people after 4 or 5 days are already starting to feel better. If they have sinus issues or joint pain or headaches, oftentimes these things start to just start to really diminish.
There's some swaps too that people can make in the process while they're weaning off, so it's not as hard, right? Where you
Exactly.
Show us, maybe give us a little 101 of going
Sure.
gluten-free.
Yeah, a couple things. If somebody just typically has cheese and crackers.
Yeah.
I mean, this is easy. You can find many crackers that are out there
that are gluten-free.
If you do pasta. Here's brown rice as an alternative, and I think this one is red lentil pasta. You found this.
Got that at the Nutrition Expo.
Right.
Yeah.
So you could find that. I mean, you could do your noodles again. You could make it from vegetables.
Make those good, right? And then there's also like oatmeals. You have to be careful with oatmeal. They're not all gluten-free, right?
Right, so you want to, oats have their own issues because many of them are manufactured in facilities in which there might be wheat, so that, they're going to get some cross-contamination.
Right,
one thing I do want to point out, and that is that many gluten-free products are not necessarily healthy.
Right.
So, this is gluten-free brownies. I mean, this still has sugar, it still has refined flour, it's still going to cause your blood sugars to go up. And, a shout out to, our sugar-free or sugar awareness video that we recently did to help people become more aware.
Yeah, so you hear that, guys? You can't go to the store and stock up on cupcakes that are gluten-free and pastries and all that and just gorge yourself, because you still get sick. It'll still make you fat.
Right, and it's still inflammatory.
Yes.
I mean, it still is going to create pain and inflammation.
But it's a good alternative if you, say your child's sensitive and you don't want them to feel left out on birthdays. Or
exactly.
You can still have these things. Jeannie, thank you so much for being here today. It's always great to have you on the program.
Yeah, we're looking forward to coming back.
That's going to do it for this edition of Healthy Habits. We'll see you next time.